The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. When Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of King Herod, behold, Magi from the east arrived in Jerusalem, saying, "Where is the newborn King of the Jews? We saw his star at its rising and have come to do him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was greatly troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. Assembling all the chief priests and the scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. They said to him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it has been written through the prophet, 'And you, Bethlehem, land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, since from you shall come a ruler who's to shepherd my people Israel.' Then Herod called the Magi secretly and ascertained from them the time of the star's appearance. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, 'Go and search diligently for the child. When you have found him, bring me word, that I too may go and do him homage.' After their audience with the king, they set out. And behold, the star that they had seen at its rising preceded them, until it came and stopped over the place where the child was. They were overjoyed at seeing the star, and on entering the house they saw the child with Mary his mother. They prostrated themselves and did him homage. Then they opened their gifts and offered him gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed for their country by another way. The Gospel of the Lord. I remember when I was 11 years old, my best friend Jimmy and I went away to this sleepaway camp out in the middle of Pennsylvania. And it was actually a tennis camp, and we played tennis morning, noon, and night. But I remember the first night that we were there, the thing that struck the two of us, Jersey boys, was we could not believe the number of stars that were over central Pennsylvania. We were dumbfounded. We had never seen so many stars in all of our life. And as we were there with our group of new friends, we were all lying down in the field, these cornfields, and looking up at these stars. And we're like, why are there so many in Pennsylvania and not in New Jersey? Like, we really had a hard time trying to figure this out. And thank God one of the camp counselors explained to us, like, well, where do you boys live? We're like, well, we're right outside New York City. We're in Tenafly. It's right on the Hudson River. And like, yeah, New York City is why you don't see stars, because all of the electrical lights, all of the glow of the city stops you. And she said to us, she said, there are actually as many stars over New Jersey as there are over Pennsylvania. You just can't see them. So that sky, and I hope all of you at some stage of your life have seen that type of sky that I just described. That type of sky is what existed at Jesus' time. There were no big cities with this glow. What the Magi saw, what Jesus saw as young people looking up in the sky, was a magnificent star-studded celestial show that was going on every single night. So what did they see? What did these Magi see? And for years, scientists have been trying to figure out, was that Star of Bethlehem, was it a comet? Was it a meteor? Was it a supernova? What did they actually see? And there was a professor, he's now Professor Emeritus from Rutgers University. His name is Michael Molnar. And if you want to read it, he wrote the best book about the Star of Bethlehem. And he did all this investigation work, and then he used his computer simulated models and discovered what the Star of Bethlehem actually was, what they would have seen in the sky in that time. And in that time, Magi were kind of like astrologers. You know, people like look at their signs. I was born on the cusp of Leo and Virgo, and my friends tell me that fits. I have no idea what they mean. But People looked a lot of those things. So the sign of the Jews at that time was the constellation of Aries. And the story was, the belief was, that when the moon eclipsed the planet Jupiter, a new king would be born. And so Michael Molnar did all of the calculations and figured out what they would have seen in the east when the planet Jupiter was in the east, in the constellation of Aries, and the moon would have blocked the Jupiter. That would have been the star of Bethlehem. I won't ruin the whole book because I really recommend you read it if you're interested in it. He goes into probably like 200, 300 pages. There's a lot of depth about how he discovered that. And I don't want to ruin the book for you, but a little spoiler alert. Jesus wasn't actually born in the year 0 BC, right? We all think that's when Jesus was born. He was actually, all scientists and scholars as well pretty much agree, he was born around the year 5 or 6 BC. And the reason for that mess up is because there was this monk in the Middle Ages, his name was Dennis, and Dennis messed up by about 5 or 6 years as he was trying to calculate it. So when we just celebrated Christmas 2018, it was actually probably more like 2024, 2023, that since Jesus was been born. But it's a wonderful book, Michael Molnar, The Star of Bethlehem. But this feast day is also known as the Feast of the Epiphany. And the Epiphany is a Greek word, epi meaning on, phanio meaning appearance. So epiphania means that in that moment, this light was shown on a particular place at a particular time. Kind of like when we call it an epicenter, right, where the earthquake actually is centered because it's on that spot. So this epiphany was God's light shining down for all of these people. This is where the newborn King of the Jews, this is where the Messiah is being born. But it's important to keep in mind why this feast day is so important. The Jewish people, as Thomas Cahill wrote in his famous book, The Gift of the Jews, which is another good book to read, I'm giving you lots of books to read today, explains that the greatest gift that the Jews gave to this world was the gift of monotheism. Before the Jews, we thought there were many, many gods, and then God revealed to his chosen people that there's just one God. But then the understanding was that God just loved that one people. God just loved the chosen people. What this feast day tells us is that God loves all people. And when Jesus came to the earth, it wasn't just for the chosen people of whom he was a member, but it was actually for all people. And that's who the kings represent. Caspar, Melchior, Balthazar. The three kings represent the far continents, the far peoples, and that this message is for all people. And so Jesus truly came to establish his church, his community, to truly be Catholic. Catholic is another Greek word, and the word katholikos, katholika, in Greek means universal. So God came for all people. We as Catholics, we're called to be universalists. We're called to be people who love all people. Just as Jesus came to save all people, regardless of their continent, regardless of the color of their skin, regardless of their religious background. Jesus came to save all people. And that's what we're celebrating at the Epiphany, that this is a gift for all of us, and we are truly called to be Catholic. And I want to make a challenge to all of us today. And I want us to really think about this during this week. How Catholic am I? That is, how universal am I? Do I love all people? Is there any group of people, because of where they live, or because of the color of their skin, or because of their religious background, that I exclude from my heart? Because even if I just exclude one person, I'm not really Catholic. Catholic means universal. And that's the community that Jesus came to establish. And that's what we're all called to be. And as Catholics, we're at our best when we welcome everyone. Then the last point of my homily is we always think of the three gifts that the Magi bring. We think of the gold, the frankincense, and the myrrh. And I'm sure you've heard the joke that if God chose 3 wise women instead of 3 wise men, right, they would have brought much more practical gifts, right, to a young couple with a newborn. They would have brought, diapers, clothing, food, and these wise men brought these. Obviously, it's a joke. Their gifts represent a symbol of different things, which we won't get into. But I wanted to think for us today, what gifts am I bringing to Jesus? What gifts am I bringing to this community, this church that he founded, this Catholic church that has lived for these 2,000 years since Jesus established it? What are the gifts that I am giving to Jesus? Because it's not just the Magi that we're called. We all have gifts. And I'm sure you remember back in the day we used to speak about the 3 T's. Anyone remember what the 3 T's are? No? Very good. Time, talent, and treasure. Very good. And she's not a plant in the audience. She got that. Time, talent, and treasure. When we used to have these stewardship weekends, all of us as Catholics, all of us members of this parish, we're called to contribute, to give the gifts of our time, our talent, and our treasure. And many times we only focus on the treasure part of it. And yes, it's important that we contribute to our parish, and I do thank all of you. You contribute week after week. Our Christmas collection, thanks be to God, was a very healthy, robust one. Helen knows that. She's our chief collection counter here. And I thank you very, very much for it, from the heart. And especially now that we're about to build this extension, right, we need your continued generosity. But I want to challenge us as well this week. How about my talents? How about my time? Am I giving enough of my talents to the parish? We have 63 ministries here and expanding all the time. It's a wonderful, wonderful parish, but oftentimes I see it's the same people volunteering over and over again, right? And maybe for some of us, we can't volunteer now. We can't give of our time. Maybe health issues, maybe family issues, could be other things. But I invite us all to look in our hearts and to really pray this week. Say, Lord, can I give more of my time, more of my talents, to continue building up this wonderful community, this Catholic Church community here at St. Elizabeth's. And my final point, because some people have been asking me now, well, what's your vision for the parish here? I've been with you for 1.5 years, and I think we're in a really great spot right now. I think we're growing in so many beautiful and wonderful ways. My vision goes back to my first story of this homily. I would love to see St. Elizabeth's have as many stars over our sky as I found there in Pennsylvania as a little boy. And those stars are each and every one of us that are here today. Each and every one of us have time, talent, and treasure to give, to make our parish, to make our community shine ever more, so that we can be that beacon to the entire world, to the entire universe around us, that here at St. Elizabeth's, you can find the Messiah, the newborn King of the Jews, whom the Magi came to worship, and whom we come to worship week after week. Amen.